Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar. I'm so excited to be talking about this topic with you today, and I'm so excited to be joined by Matt Hicken, who's going to be sharing some amazing insights with you. Today, we're going to be talking about the strategic partner puzzle. The reason we're talking about it is because how cool is it when a new prospect comes to you and says, my CPA told me to come see you. She says that you're the best. How much cooler is it when that happens every week, every month, every quarter, every year? What about when it happens multiple times a month, multiple times a quarter, to the point that you can be sure you're going to be getting strategic partner referrals on a regular and consistent basis? Well, that's the holy grail of building a strategic partner network. And of all the ways to grow your business, this might be the one that actually has the highest ceiling for financial advisors. And it's certainly the method that we're seeing most of the top and fastest growing advisors on our system leveraging right now. So today we're going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of building your own strategic partner network. Now, there are several mistakes, common mistakes and errors that financial advisors tend to make that will often derail your progress when it comes to building a strategic partner network. Before you even find all the edge pieces of the puzzle you're trying to build, the puzzle gets upended if you make one or more of these mistakes. So Matt is going to be sharing some of the most common ones and how to avoid them so you can set about getting more referrals and providing better service to your clients through creating more and more high quality strategic partnerships. So before we go any further, let's introduce ourselves. Today you have two Matts for the price of one. This is the first time we've ever had both of us on a webinar, so we're really excited to see how this goes. I am unfortunately Matt the Smaller. My name is Matt Bailey. I'm the head writer and director of content here at Bill Good Marketing, and I'm really excited to be joined by an absolute and literal giant in the field in Matt Hicken. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, no, and I love the fact that you and I get to be on this webinar together, and it is going to be epic. Either way, when you have two mats on the same thing, I also have to address that to the size thing because it is literally when I go to folks' offices or I go do presentations at broker dealers, one of the first things I get is, "Hey, I watch their videos and you're a lot bigger in person," which is true. I do get bigger than this big off a screen. So I am 6'8". That's what Matt is referring to as far as the giant size. Uh, but I am the senior vice president of consulting here at Bill Good Marketing. I get to travel around and go to advisors' offices, help them with all the various aspects of the business, and help them get from wherever they're at, which is usually at a plateau or a stalling kind of a phase, to pass that and beyond to the next one.
That's great. In addition to that, Matt is really one of the preeminent experts on strategic partnerships that you will find in this industry. I remember before Matt came back to work at Bill Good Marketing, I was actually working on writing out a new version of our strategic partner strategy, which we're going to dive into a little bit more on this call. And Bill Good said, "Okay, you need to go and see the other Matt and get his take on everything." So I sent him what I've been working on, and Matt Hicken came back and he showed me all the different ways where I was close but not quite getting it, or things that I was missing, or things that I hadn't even thought of, hadn't even occurred to me, and that really massively boosted my knowledge of strategic partnerships, which he has done for so many advisors over the years. So it's a real treat to be able to hear from you, Matt, and learn more about this topic from you.
Well, thank you. And it's been interesting developing strategic partners myself personally, and then also traveling around and helping lots of other advisors do it in different areas. So we'll be talking through all of those best practices and ideas that I've seen.
Great. Before we go any further, Matt, we're getting a message from Jim Dombrowski, who I know you know very well, uh,
Yeah,
asking if you could maybe boost up the volume on your mic a little bit.
yeah. I turned it up. I hope that's okay. Jim, if you can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, that'd be awesome.
All right, so let's before we actually get into the topic, one little note of housekeeping that we always like to say for anyone who's new to these webinars. We love questions. So if at any point you have any questions for Matt or for myself, or even if you want to just share your own experiences, we'd love to hear from you. Just put them in the chat box, and I'll feed them to Matt as we go through the call. And then finally, as we always do on these webinars, we like to say thank you very much for giving us an hour of your time by giving you a what we call a goodie bag. The goodie bags always contain resources that will help you be able to implement what you've learned immediately from this call. And today we have a very special item in the goodie bag. It's a guidebook called Six Steps to Generating More Strategic Partner Referrals. I actually was the one who started working on this years ago. And as I mentioned, Matt has come along and taken it to an even higher level. Matt, tell everyone a little bit about what's in this guidebook and what they're going to get from this goodie bag.
Yeah, so what I've seen is honestly there's the approach that I've seen a lot of advisors take has been kind of a two-step process. And we'll talk about some of the mistakes in that process today. But this guidebook basically walks through the actual six steps. There's a lot more to it that you have to follow to ensure that not only are you on top of the start of the process, but then on the ongoing side of the phase. So this is not a guidebook that's just general ideas or good thoughts out there like you'd get from a wholesaler lunch. This is actually, okay, here are the steps to go about doing this.
Excellent. So to get this guidebook, what we do is at the end of this call, we're going to give you a link to a quick 1 minute survey just to let us know how we did, what you got from this, what we can do better, what you'd like to hear from us in the future. So just fill out that survey, and that's immediately going to take you to the guidebook itself, which you can download. And again, we'll have the link to that survey at the end of this webinar, so stick around for that. Okay, so let's dive into the topic. And I want to begin, before we get into the actual mistakes, I want to start at a little bit of a higher level, Matt, and talk about what do we mean when we say strategic partner? What is a strategic partnership? Can you break that down and define that a little bit for us?
Yeah, and actually, I think this is going to become critical as we go through the rest of our discussion and talk about some of the aspects of it. Before I delve into that, if somebody could let me know if my audio is better, if I'm still much quieter. I've adjusted the mic. Hopefully this is a better quality. Um, that said, so a strategic partnership is a where two non-competing professionals join together for the betterment and good of the client and to help each other. That is our Bill Good marketing definition. And each part of that is a critical piece to the overall explanation of a strategic partnership, right? If you notice, I said professionals. I didn't say CPAs and I didn't say attorneys. I said professionals. So it's not just those two, which is usually where everybody goes first. The other thing you'll notice I didn't say in that definition is two non-competing professionals who exchange referrals in a tit-for-tat relationship. That's not what I said. So it's the whole thing is absolutely critical on this overall setup of a strategic partnership. And I appreciate those letting me know that the audio is okay.
So yeah, let's unpack that a little bit more. So you said the word professionals, and I was going to ask you about that. And you mentioned that CPAs and attorneys, we're not just limiting ourselves to that. So if you don't mind, break down a little bit, sort of the breadth of what we're looking at when it comes to potential strategic partnerships.
Yeah, so and there's kind of two parts to this that I want to address. The very first part is that when I say professionals, I do mean other people that in their job, in their career, do touch on financial aspects for your ideal clients' lives. So, for example, I'm not going to go to a 7-Eleven clerk and try to form a strategic partnership. They're not most likely interacting on a high financial basis with your ideal client. Um, but I could go to, yes, the CPA and attorney. I'm not excluding them from the possibility of partnership, but I also could go to a Medicare specialist. I could go to an activity director for a 55 plus retirement community at a high end community like that. I could go to a luxury car dealership. I could go to a dock master. I could go to anybody that's going to delve into advice and talk high-end finance with the people you want to be working with. So that's the first piece, and the more creative you can get, the better. The second part to this is that as I said at the beginning there, we want to partner or align ourselves with professionals who are top notch. Now, as we delve into this definition a little more and talk about, what is exactly, like, how can we say, yes, I've reached strategic partnership level with this particular professional? Um, Really, that comes down to saying, okay, yes, this is a professional who does help each other, right? So there is an exchange of referrals, there is an exchange of ideas, and there is an exchange of help. All three of those are in place. And if it's not, it doesn't mean that I can't use that professional. So just to throw out an example to help explain this thought, the top estate planning attorney in the area I was in North Carolina, uh, did not give referrals to any other advisor and
Mm.
did not delve into business. It's just how he decided he was going to run his business. Great guy, and he was the best at estate planning. Now, I'm not going to take my best client and hand it to somebody else who's lower tier just because that lower tier person has the potential to maybe send me a referral.
Right.
Not going to be the case. Now, I wouldn't call Ron, this attorney, a strategic partner, but I'm still going to use him. So I want to keep this in mind as we're managing all the professionals you work with. There are strategic partners, and then there are professionals that are out there, right? And the
Yeah.
full definition has to be in place for it to be a partnership.
That's fascinating. So I want to take the first part of your answer really quick. And I loved what you mentioned about, being creative when you're looking for potential partnerships. In my experience, though, whenever you're trying to be creative at something, oftentimes too many options is the same as too few because you're not quite sure where to start. You may start in the wrong place. You may be wasting your time in one area when really you should be spending your time in another area. So, given the all of the various options of potential partnerships that are available to you, in your experience, how do advisors, or should advisors think of it in terms of a hierarchy? Is there a best practice in terms of what types of professionals they're starting with, or is it just very dependent on an individual advisor, their personality, their business model, their market, etc.? What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's one that often comes up. And I think the key here is that I'm going to start with those professionals that I know can help me directly in the business, right? And I can help them. And that's going to come down to, I mean, the Wealth Management Institute, all the financial planning things have different numbers of them. I say there's 6 aspects to folks' financial life. Some say 5, some say 13. I think 6, right? So if it's insurance, it's estate planning and strategies, it's income strategies and retirement, it's tax strategies, and it's investment strategies. And then to me, legacy is separate from estate, and it's a different thought. So with all of those 6 different areas, I'm going to look for, if I don't fill that role myself, which investments would most likely be me. If you do insurance, then that's also you. But otherwise, I'm going to look for partnerships in those areas, other professionals who are experts in that field, so that now we can exchange ideas, help each other in the business. They can send me their clients, I can send them their clients, my clients, so that all of our clients together receive, all 6 of their areas, completely in line, and they're perfected. So I'll start there. Now, I threw out the example of Dockmaster and luxury car dealer, and I do see advisors that are getting referrals from those sources, and it does work. So kind of the next step in this process, and as far as developing your lists of potential partners, it's got to start with those that you know already, right? People that you've already been working with. If you've got that estate attorney that you've been talking to and maybe sent clients to, but you're like, yeah, but Matt, they're not a partnership as you described, because there's no exchange of ideas, referrals, and help. And so, yeah, I'll start there, because most likely you haven't gone through our process in developing that partnership. So that's my first list, professionals I'm already working with. Second list are the professionals that I know my clients work with. And this is any professional out there, because now I've got an introduction and I can get an idea or a recommendation or not as to whether or not they're a good partner. And then my final list, I'll just look through my area and see, okay, well, is there a property casualty agent? Because that's not an area of insurance I deal with. So I'll go out there and see if I can find a PNC group that actually would work really well. And Best things to look for is just go look at the websites, talk to clients, friends, other professionals you're already talking to, and just start developing these three lists together as a start.
I love that. There's so many things, little things you just said, that are triggering memories in my mind of, advisors that I've worked with and spoken to, and how they built up outstanding strategic partner networks. You use the word exchange of ideas. I think that's a really underrated way of looking at a strategic partnership. It brings to mind an advisor I worked with probably 12 years ago now. His name was Paul. And one of the things that he found out was that a number of his clients all had the same travel agent, and they all raved about this travel agent. They loved her. They loved everything about the way she helped them, you know, go on adventures they didn't know that they'd be able to do, or that seemed too daunting or too time consuming to put together. And so he decided, what, I need to meet this woman because my clients love her. If she's playing an important part in their lives, I should be able to meet her too. And so he sat down with her, and they, struck up a rapport, and they started doing events together where he'd bring her in to talk to his clients about how do you save money on travel? How do you go to different places that may, seem, far out there, but really they're closer than you may think. She'd bring him in, to talk about how do you save, more money for vacations? How do you budget for them? How do you go on vacations now before retirement while still saving for retirement? And as a result, they were able to give business to each other. But the real thing there was them exchanging ideas, exchanging, what they did for their clients that made a difference, the clients that they both had that they, respectively both cared for. And that led to an extremely fruitful relationship. So I love that, Matt, about exchanging ideas, looking for professionals your clients are already working with, and sort of thinking a little bit outside the box when it comes to
Yeah.
finding strategic
No,
partners.
and I love the travel agent idea because I think that fits in. And there was a question about for me to repeat the six. So I think that falls in under the retirement living and income point. But just to kind of go through them real quick again, is just that and this is me. Like you can go out there and find all kinds of lists. This is just the way I look at it. So it's estate planning, it's tax strategy, it's insurance planning, and some people call that risk management. But insurance planning, retirement living slash income, investments, and then I put legacy as separate from estate just because I think it's a different process. But so those are my six, but however you want to do it.
Love that. The last question I had for you before we get into the individual mistakes is, we're talking about, we're calling this the strategic partner puzzle. Whenever someone is putting together an actual puzzle in real life, they have the picture on the box right next to them. They know what the puzzle is supposed to look like. Without it, it becomes much more difficult to put that puzzle together. So I want to ask you, what does the final result look like? What's the picture on the box when it comes to strategic partners? How do we know whether we're being successful or not? Or in other words, what does success with strategic partnerships look like? What's your take
Yeah,
on
so I think I'll give a couple of examples to describe this because again, a successful strategic partnership, and we call it a partnership as soon as we say it's yes, this particular other professional is non-competing, but they are exchanging ideas with us. They are we're working together to help our clients, so it's a combined effort to help clients. And there is an exchange and introduction of referrals and individuals who need our help. So those are the three kind of measuring sticks to say, yes, it's a partnership. So to give an example of this exchange of ideas and helping each other help clients. So when you have a proper partnership set up, for example, one of the partners that we had, I'll kind of go through this process that we had with them. It was a constant communication process. We have documents out there discussing like the set scheduled communication things you should do with strategic partners that we go through and help clients with. But there's the outside of the standard, right? And so this is text messages back and forth. Hey, did you take care of this for so-and-so? Or, hey, we just met with so-and-so. They had this come up in their life. You may want to drop a line, or you may want to reach out and say hello, or send a card, or whatever it might be. We would get together for lunches, and not to do our review meeting, which we'll talk about, but just because we were friends, right? And at those lunches, it was a constant, because we were both committed to everything we were doing. It was a constant discussion of ideas. Like, hey, what's new in the tax world? What's going on? Like, what are some of the tricks and tips you have with the latest tax changes the government, proposed? What are your thoughts on this? Or what should clients be watching out for? And then from our perspective, hey, there was this really cool new way product that we're looking at. It kind of functions this way. How would you see this impacting the tax situation for clients? Do you see a benefit to this kind of a process? So it was this constant exchange back and forth of ideas and thoughts about everything that was going on in the world and in finance. And then finally, it was an introduction of referrals, right? There's the whole thing of a potential or a professional telling you, oh yeah, no, I tell people to come see you, right? It's kind of like when clients tell you that, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I told my neighbor they got to come talk to you. Great, that's awesome, love it, but then you never get the call,
Yeah.
right? And so that's where we say, okay, look, like in an actual partnership, this is an introduction process. So it's a look like I'm going to bring you to the next event that Matt's hosting, or let's go to grab a cup of coffee for breakfast in the morning. That way you can meet the team and get to know them and then work together. Or even just picking up the phone with the client in the office and putting us on speaker and saying, hey, Matt and team, I'd like you to meet this person. This is Matt and team. Can we get a time set up that works for everybody? So it's an introduction process rather than, yeah, sure, I mentioned you, or hey, your business card's on my credenza, you know?
I love that. I love almost the step-by-step approach of looking, is this partnership actually successful? Are we interacting? Are we exchanging ideas? Are they actually introducing people as opposed to just mentioning my name? I think that's such a cool way to look at it, a systematic way to look at it that maybe we don't always remember to do.
Yeah.
Robert asked if you could list the 6 areas one more time, and this time I'm going to type it in the chat as you respond.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I'll go in a different order every time, but sorry. So, estate planning, first off. Second is retirement living. Third is tax strategy. Fourth, we'll say insurance strategy. Fifth is investment strategy. And sixth is legacy planning.
Right. And I'm going to actually retype that because I realized I was set to message that to you and you already know it. So I'm going to do
Oh,
that.
no, I appreciate it though.
Great. Okay, so let's dive into the actual mistakes now. Before we do that, as I'm typing this out, when we think of mistakes, why is it so important that we avoid mistakes as opposed to why do we say it? Here's the 5 mistakes to avoid as opposed to here's the 5 things to do. In your mind, what's the distinction there?
Yeah, so to me, the reason why I wanted to do this presentation this way and discuss the mistakes is often when I talk to financial advisors for the very start, right? In fact, I had a conversation with an advisor the other day, and I loved what he said. He said, Matt, we have PTSD from strategic partnerships. And I loved that statement, the PTSD, right? Because it is almost the level of what it is. So many advisors have tried so many ideas, and having worked in the industry, I know, like, you meet with a wholesaler, you go to the CE lunches, you do the conferences for the broker dealer or conferences out there in the industry, and you hear somebody come out and they talk about, oh, this is the way to do it. If you have a powerful brochure and you slap that down in front of that CPA, referrals will flow. And that's the problem, right? Is that there's all of these mistakes that are perpetuated in the industry, and then people try the mistakes and make them and then think, oh, well, strategic partnerships are just this weird ethereal thing out there. To your point of the actual picture of the puzzle, they're just, some people get it, right? But for me, it doesn't work in my area. That's the other thing I hear often is, yeah, it doesn't work in our area. My city, it doesn't work because I'm in super populated area, or I'm in, rural Virginia or something like that, and it doesn't work. And I will tell you, I have people that run strategic partnerships in some of the biggest cities in the country and in Canada, and I have people that run strategic partnerships very well in tiny towns of less than 5,000. So it does work. You just have to not make the mistakes.
Right. So with that in mind, let's dive into the actual mistakes, the five big strategic partner mistakes that we most often see. We'll take these one by one. Number one is a mistake that I was making years ago when I was thinking about strategic partnerships, and that you corrected me on, Matt. And that, summarizing that mistake, it's you call it spotlight syndrome, forgetting that you are not the star, that you are not the star of the show. Um, Tell us a little bit about that. Break this mistake down for us and what it means, what it looks like when advisors are making it.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of come to there's an example I'm going to use, and maybe it's not apt, but it just came to mind, so I'm going to throw it out there. And that is, you see some of those old dating shows, right, or even current ones, which I guess some of those bachelor things are dating shows, but the whole thing of you come in and like, no, I'm bigger than life, and you want nothing more than to be with me. Doesn't work. It makes for great entertainment for the rest of us watching,
Right.
but it doesn't do great for selling on a future companion, on the merits of this partnership you're going to join into. And
Right.
it's the exact same thing in this case. I can't walk in, meeting with a strategic partner, show them my beautiful brochure that maybe I've spent thousands on designing and on pictures and everything else, and slap that in front of them and say, oh yeah, but every other advisor that's done this, they haven't had as cool of a team as I have, or they haven't had this cool diagram of our process that's this little circle of all the different steps we go through. So when I set this down, they're just going to be wooed and they're going to come my way. That's not how it works.
Hmm.
This is a partnership we're trying to set up. This is not a one-way street from them to us we're trying to set up, right? We're not trying to counteract their one-way street by creating our own. So we're trying to come in and say, look, like, I need to understand everything there is to know about you. I need to know everything that you're working on, what you specialize in, what makes you different, how my clients could benefit from working with you. And then I want you to understand how I can be involved in your process to help with that. Because you're not the only one in this potential future partnership.
Right. So you just gave us a couple, but I was wondering if you could dive even a little bit deeper. When you're meeting with a potential strategic partner, and you're not coming, you're trying to not come across as being, this is all about me. I want to learn more about you. It's almost like a first date in a lot of ways, like you're alluding to. What are some of the specific questions in your experience that advisors should want to know for their own sake, but also the questions you ask that get the potential partner thinking, oh, there might be something here. This person knows what they're doing. They're not wasting my time. Because you, as both as an advisor, as a superstar coach, as an excellent salesman, asking the right question is often the thing that greases the wheels and gets them rolling, rather than saying the right thing. So, what are some of the right questions to ask in your experience?
Yeah, so there's really four things that I'm trying to gather from them, right? So four areas of them that I'm trying to understand. And there's multiple questions I'll ask in each of these areas to fully understand. But the very first area I'm trying to understand is who are they? What do they do? Right. And that has to do with their specialties. And I'll ask the question, like, in your years of experience, what have you found has, drawn your attention, or has been an area where you've put particular focus in your industry? And I'm going to try to understand exactly what it is that they love doing. Right. So I need to understand them. The second thing I need to know is, are they trying to grow? And I'll ask them, look, like, for the next year, we're at the beginning of 2024. By the end of the year, what are your goals for growth or accomplishment in your business? And I'm going to understand. I want them to be grown, right? If they're not growing, then they're either they have more than they can handle and they're fine with all the referrals they're getting from everybody else, or they're on their way out, which is another thing. I don't want to work on a partnership if that's the case.
Right.
So the third area I want to get to know is them personally, right? Just like in any other partnership, you're not going to bring in a partner into your office if you don't think you're going to get along. They may have skills, they may be looking for growth and to have the same goals as you, but if you can't, talk because all they want to talk about is one thing and you know nothing about that, there's no relationship. So I want to get to know them personally. So I'm going to ask them about, exactly what you do with your clients. There's the whole what form, family, occupation, recreation, and money. You could ask them the same things about them personally, right? If you do this all right, often strategic partners do actually become clients themselves. But so you want to ask those kinds of questions to get to know them personally. And then the next thing I want to get to know is how do they measure and what do they do in order to get paid, right? Because obviously that's what it all comes down to, right? We're in business, we're working, and in business we do need to make a profit. And so what do they do? Like what specifically is it? Like if I'm working with a CPA, for example, and I'm talking to them, I may ask them like, look, like are you looking for transactional business? Are you looking for clients that are going to pay you for a return, for example? Or do you prefer to charge a quarterly fee or an annual fee that's a retainer so you can do strategy? Or do you prefer to charge a single fee for the year that covers strategy for the entire year? Like how do you do it? And I want to understand, because that's then if I'm going to be doing my part of this helping each other thing, I need to understand how I can help him. Like if I'm teeing him up constantly for tax returns, but what he really wants is planning clients, then I'm not helping, right? So
Right.
those are the four areas I'm going to be asking questions on. And obviously there's a myriad of questions in there that you can ask.
Terrific. Now, let me ask you this. Would you ask them, a potential partner, are you already referring business, or are you already in a partnership with another financial advisor, or is that not what you care about right now?
No, I want to ask if they are in the habit of referring to other professionals.
Okay.
I don't overly care if they're currently referring to another financial advisor. I do care if that advisor is in their office, part of their team, part of their company in some form or fashion, right? Because then that kind of goes to my first part of the definition of strategic partner, non-competing.
Right.
So even if they don't do it themselves, if somebody in their office does, then yeah, we're competing, right? So I do want to know that, but I want to know, do they make a habit of referring their clients to other professionals, or have they referred their clients to other professionals? If they tell me yes, awesome, I'm moving forward. If
Mm.
they tell me no, I just don't do that, I've been burned in the past or whatever excuse, I don't do that. Okay, great. We will maintain this relationship, but I'm not moving forward and developing them as a strategic partner.
Awesome. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So now, talking about remembering that you're not the start of the show, that you're not the star of the show. Is there anything, however, that advisors should try and say or present or illustrate about themselves in that initial meeting, or within the first few meetings with a potential partner, beyond just asking questions?
Yeah. So, and this is so I teach a course, Asset Accelerator course, and one of the things we discuss is your value statement. And we go over that. And in fact, and we have another class coming up here in March, and we can put a link to that in there if you want to take a look at what we covered. But
Yeah.
that in that Asset Accelerator course, we will go through and give you statements that you can use that are going to differentiate you, because that is, to answer your question, what I need to do in that meeting. Because as you're going through all these questions, obviously I want that first conversation to almost be a 75-25, right? 25% of the talking is you, 75% is them. That 25% is, mostly questions, but any polite person that you'd want to partner with is going to return and ask you the same thing, right? You just need to answer succinctly. And when they ask you what you specialize in, if I say I specialize in holistic retirement planning, you have done nothing to further your picture in that professional's mind, right? I need to have something that differentiates me. So you do need to workshop that, find out exactly what it is. That's a whole other conversation. So I'm not going to delve into how to do that here, but that is what you're going to try to present in that meeting, is what is your differentiating factor, without going into it even as lengthy as explanation as I just did to describe it.
Now, I may be putting you on the spot a little bit, but just to give an illustrative example, do you remember what your your value proposition, your differentiator was when you would sit down with a potential partner
Yeah, see,
in
you're
North
throwing
Carolina?
that at me. Honestly, I don't.
Okay.
I've helped so many advisors since come up with their own. As you were asking, I'm like, wait, what was it now? I can't, like, there's wordings out there, and I'm sure by the end of the call it'll just pop out. But yeah, yeah,
Okay, well, I
yeah,
stumped you. I got the one in that I was gonna. So, a couple people in the office owe me money now, because they didn't think I could do it. Okay, anything else on this first mistake on spotlight syndrome that you want to cover, Matt, before we move on to the next one? Oh, I think you're muted or your microphone is turned off. No, still can't hear you. Can anyone else hear him, or is it just me? Yeah, sounds like Matt, we can't hear you. You want to swing over to my office? Come, you just sit next to me. Still nothing. Sorry, folks. Apologize for the technical difficulties.
Okay, can you hear
Great.
me now?
Terrific. Excellent.
Okay, good. I had to switch mics.
Excellent. So I asked anything else on spotlight syndrome that you wanted to cover before we move on to the second mistake?
No, I think that does cover it. Just that's one of the things I often hear people say is, well, hey, I went in, I gave them my brochure, told them all about how awesome we are, and sent them a couple of referrals, and nothing's happened in return, and that's the problem.
Right. Gotcha. Excellent. So the next one, pit polishing. Don't spend time trying to change a one-way street. This is, I think, my favorite one. I think this is the easiest one to correct.
Yes.
And I think it's also, in a lot of ways, the first one that advisors tend to make. And it really it speaks to the whole ethos of what we teach here at Bill Good Marketing in terms of any form of growth. One of the things that Bill Good, as you know, identified decades ago was that any kind of prospecting, any kind of selling is a numbers game. There's no point trying to, take someone who's not interested, they're not qualified, and getting them to that point. Move on and find the person who is interested and is qualified right now. So you're continually making progress and not wasting time spinning your wheels and going nowhere. So talk about this one a bit. How does this one look in the context of strategic partnerships?
Yeah. So often, I mentioned kind of a part of this earlier on, but often what I see is that you have a particular CPA. In fact, probably a good half the time that I see this, it's a CPA that they do my taxes, is what I hear from the advisor. So my taxes are given to them. I've sent them a dozen clients over the years, and for some reason they never send anything back. But I'm still working on it, or I've given up on partnerships, period, because this one this one person doesn't work. Um, that's usually what I see. Is it's this constant effort with one individual that quite honestly never will refer. Now, the other piece to this is that there will be, as I gave an example earlier, of those professionals out there that they're the best in the business in your area. And if you're going to refer a client to a CPA, attorney, travel agent, there is the one. Like, you're going to send them to the one.
Right.
In which case, okay, I have, in this city, in this area, I've marked that particular profession off my list as a potential in that area to be a strategic partner, right? And
Right.
I'll go to other potential professions in that area to be a partner there. But I'm done working on that individual as becoming a partner, right? I'm not going to keep setting up lunches and things like that. I had this one advisor I worked with that what he was doing was he set up monthly calls with all of these people that he wanted to partner with. And you can imagine the headache and scheduling that was, because it was constant reschedules and can't make it. And then when they did, it seemed like It was the whole lip service discussion, but no referrals were coming at the time. So it was a real quick, easy, great, let's scrub through your list, right? Let's take all these people. I want you to put them through this process that we have, these few steps, set up this first meeting, and I need you to get information on these 4 areas. And if in these 4 areas they miss out, we're done with those monthly calls with that particular professional. So just stop doing all of these different things with them, constantly thinking that one day, like for example, in our city, that estate attorney, Ron, I wasn't gonna try every single month to call him and convert him to giving me referrals. He told me he wasn't going to. I'm moving on, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big piece. The other thing is, I want to highlight something I said in there is that in that area, right? So hopefully all of you are kind of doing this, but you're probably operating or have groups of clients in different cities or even different states in some case. Great. If in this city the best CPA is this particular individual, fantastic. But if I have clients over in this city, couldn't I find a CPA professional in that city rather than referring those clients over to come over to this city? Yeah, of course. So there's plenty of people out there to reach out to. Don't spend all of your time or waste all of your time on one individual. And then on this, I want to kind of talk about another statistic that I've seen. So there's actually a study done, and the stat is that 90% of CPAs will not work as a strategic partner in the way that we were describing. It's just not in their wheelhouse. So that being said, I think attorneys are about the same in my experience, and then with those that I've talked to, it's maybe about the same number. In fact, I've had some advisors tell me, "Oh no, it's worse." But either way, let's say 90%. So then if I can, just kind of extrapolate that to other professions too, just to be easy on my poor math brain, that means that if I'm trying to develop 6 to 8 to maybe 10, depending upon how many advisors are on your team, 10 partnerships, I need 100 starting names, right? And if I have 100 potential strategic partners out there, what's the name of the game? Screen them out, right? Get down to those 10 that could work as quickly and as efficiently as I can. So if I am spending all my time with lunch after lunch after lunch or phone call after phone call with the group up here, then I am pit polishing.
Right.
If I hit a question and they say no, or that doesn't work for me, or hey, or even if I'm trying to schedule the lunch and they constantly have something coming up, fantastic, off my list, I'm moving down, right?
I love that. Thinking of this step number one as list building, rather than, jumping the gun, skipping steps and going right into, trying to, develop a relationship with the first person that you see, the first professional that you meet with. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah, that's a really cool way of thinking of it. One quick question on this, and then we need to move on to the next mistake. Have you ever encountered a situation where a professional who was a good partner, or at least a decent partner, became a pit? How do you handle that? If you ever run into that, where someone was engaged, was referring business, and then it just seems to dry up?
Yeah, obviously the most common example is when it's a retiring professional, right? Where they're sold their business or handing over their business to junior, or they're getting ready to do so, and suddenly referrals from them just tank. And then the advisor often tries to spend time on whoever is going to succeed them in that business to try to develop them, because hey, it's that office space worked well, so whoever's sitting in that office space, maybe I'll work it into it. It honestly, it doesn't often happen. It can. So I'm not saying ignore it. If one person's retiring and selling their business, don't talk to the new person. Do, but it's the exact same thing. Put them through the process. And if they screen themselves out, move on, right? It worked. It was great. Now move on. It's time to go talk to somebody else.
I love that. Okay, mistake number 3, the follow-up fumble. Tell us about this, about inconsistent engagement, and why that tends to derail partnerships.
Yeah. So, so our CPA partner, he actually told us this, and I've seen it time and time again with other advisors as I talk to them about their partnership PTSD. And it's they do this whole thing. Most advisors do it, and so most of these other professionals, like CPAs and attorneys, who are the most targeted by advisors, they know the routine, right? And they'll outweigh you. So what happens is you start this relationship, you hand them the brochure, you go through this, and let's say even you follow the Bill Good mantra, right? So you have that first lunch meeting, you're asking questions in those 4 areas, everything seems good, and then you say, "Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to send them a couple of clients, and then referrals are going to flow in." And there's no ongoing communication, there's no ongoing meetings, there's no real exchange of ideas or ongoing stuff. And so that attorney, what do they see you as? Yeah, they had a decent first meeting, and yeah, they're okay at it, but there's nothing distinguishing you,
Right.
right? From all the others. And they know if they wait you out, you'll keep sending them business over time, but they don't have to worry about putting in an effort into this. So that's part of the reason why we need to have consistent engagement. The other reason is being the master of it here, you have to stay top of mind,
Right.
right? When they have all of these other things that they're working on with their clients, and it's all in this scope, I need to show them that, hey, within that scope, this little tiny piece over here is a perfect tie-in to what I can do for the client in this big area over here. And so that's what I constantly need to point out to them is, look, like, this is where I fit. This is where I fall into this big picture of what you're trying to create for your clients. And then constantly pointing out the different needs, the secondary reason for these wonderful discussions and helping each other meetings with your partner of, hey, I've heard this new idea, or hey, have you seen with the new tax changes, are people often using annuities in their tax planning strategy or in their IRAs? With the changes, or what are they doing? What are you seeing people do tax wise with their 529 plans? And so you can ask these kinds of questions. Yes, I'm going to get an answer and I'm going to get information and we're going to exchange ideas, but I'm also putting in their mind that, oh, yes, this advisor also works in this. So if I'm talking to somebody and they talk about their frustrations or problems with this particular area of their finances, I can say, yes, this guy is the person to talk to. So you have to have that consistent communication cycle going on with them. And just to go over the major communication cycles that should be happening. Once somebody does work their way through the process, I've screened them out. I'm not pit polishing at this stage. They have tried to introduce me to people. Then I'm going to meet with them at the very least, at the most on a quarterly basis, at the least every 6 months. And I'm going to discuss our mutual clients, and those will fall into 3 categories, and I will show them in those 3 categories. They'll have a binder with them in the 3 categories of, these are the clients I've sent you. These are the clients you've sent me, which sometimes is smaller, a list, and that's kind of this subtle reminder. And then these are the clients that just happen to mutually fall upon the best people in the area to talk to, and so they work with both of us. And then we go through what's going on in the lives of all these people. Is there anything the partner knows that we need to know? Is there anything we need to know that our partner needs to know? Now, this is not a full disclosure, giving them all the dirty details of everything with the family. It's just the need to know information.
Right.
And then that's one, is consistent review. Second, I'm going to include them in my messaging. So I'm either going to include them in getting my client mailings, or I'm going to set up a set campaign of letters going out to them on a monthly basis that are, good stories or even educational. We call that the Blended Wilson campaign for those that are using our system. You write these amazing letters that are phenomenal. They really bring an impact. And I'll even tell partners, and this is what we used to do, is look, like, we'll print a whole bunch of extras with no, addressing information on our letterhead, so you can hand out these wonderful stories to your clients. So it's that communication. I'm going to text, call, or email at least once a month on this exchange of ideas, or even on a personal note. So one of the things that we used to do is we kept track of the personal things. So one of our CPAs that we worked with, huge Jimmy Buffett fan. And so, like, if they opened up a new 5 o'clock somewhere bar or something like that, we would drop him a line. Or if he happened to have a tour stop somewhat close, we'd like, hey, are you going? Just to keep this ongoing communication happening. I do send them birthday letters as another piece of this ongoing communication. I want to recognize an important date in their life. Um, and then again, I'm just going to make sure that I know their team and they know my team, right? Because we all know that those are the people that actually make things happen. So if they've got a primary executive assistant or, office manager, I'm going to make sure they know mine.
I love all that. And I'll just add one thing to what Matt said about including strategic partners, in your monthly communications. I think that's especially true during times of intense market volatility. If you're sending out a piece to your clients that's breaking down, what's going on in the markets and why and what, how you see things shaping out, make sure your strategic partners get a copy of that. Include a little, note with saying, hey, if you'd like to share this with your clients who might be, uncertain or panicking or whatever, feel free to do that. That's when people are in most need of financial advice. And if you have a CPA or an estate planning attorney or whatever, and their clients are not hearing from their financial advisor, that's the time they need to be seeing your name. So especially during times of market volatility, make sure your strategic partners are getting your content.
100%. Because that helps you in their minds, but it also empowers them, which is the whole idea, right? We're exchanging help.
Absolutely. All right, the next mistake, misconnections, not creating opportunities to get introductions to your partner's clients. Tell us about this, Matt.
Yeah, so this is one of those pieces that we found was most helpful in our relationships. And this was the whole idea of we constantly were trying to further get to know our clients. And I know our listeners do the same thing. And we would strategically go through it. We had a list that actually Bill had given us, and I added questions, and we've built it up over time. But just all of these different questions that we could ask a client about their life, anything that's going on in their life. And we consistently went through those questions and updated answers in order to make sure that we knew everything that was going on. Now, the other piece to this is on our team, we call this radar on, antenna up, right? It's not just I'm talking to Matt Bailey and he mentions to me that, yeah, I got to get my taxes ready. Boom, my radar should be beeping, right? And say, oh, cool. Are you working with so and so still? Is this going on? Or how are you feeling about that relationship? How is the planning strategy going with this person? Would you say they are a planner or a preparer? And I'm going to go through these questions with Matt so that I can gather this information. And if Matt tells me, as we often heard from clients, is, I only see him once a year. I drop off my taxes, and yeah, sure, they're fine, I guess. I don't know. Then it was, oh, great. Well, actually, what we've seen is the best way to do this is exactly as we work with you. You need a professional in the tax side that is covering every last aspect of your tax strategy. We'd love to introduce you to somebody if you'd be open to that. And so I'm always looking for this look like I'm trying to take care of this, all 6 things in my client's life and make sure it's all covered. But I can't be a travel agent. I can't be a tax specialist. I can't be all these other things while managing investments. So I have a partner for that. But I'm going to ask him questions about all of these things. And then the idea is with your partner, discuss what is the best way for us to exchange clients. Like, how would you like to do this? Do you want to do it as a phone call? Do I just set them up? Do I call in and talk to your office manager and schedule a mutual appointment? Do I talk to you directly? Would you prefer that we exchange an email introducing each other? What's the best way to get this done so that they know how to do it, we know how to do it, and it all just works smoothly.
Wonderful. All right, mistake number 5, the partnership illusion, focusing on your win, not the client's, and community benefit. Now, I confess, when I first saw you write this one down, I wasn't quite sure what you meant. So I from my own, enlightenment, please break this down for us. What does this mean?
Well, I'm going to come back to the title, right? Partnership illusion. It's partnership, right? It's not a other professional that's going to send me referrals.
Mhm.
Right? If you remember, there's 3 aspects I'm looking for from this partnership. If it's only the referral part of it that I'm waiting for and focused in on, I'm missing 2 huge benefits that I get by partnering with somebody. And the cool thing is, when I focus on all 3, the referral one does get bigger naturally.
Mm.
So if I'm consistently talking to my partner about ideas, helps for them in their business? How can I get marketing done for you? One of our CPAs, for example, he said, I love how you guys always do events for your clients. That's so cool. One of these days, I got to figure out how to do it for mine. Great, Keith. That's awesome. Bring your clients to our event. We'll put you down as a co-host, and now you are hosting events for your clients. How cool is
Yeah,
that?
love that.
Right? And then the cool thing is he brings his clients to that event. We're there, and hey, if we happen to meet them and get to know each other and get an introduction, referrals grow, right? But it was under the idea of I'm helping Keith do something he's always wanted to do, but didn't have the skill set, time, or resources to get done. Whereas I do have a skill set, time, and resources to run events. That's what I do. So I'll do it for him. So that's what I'm talking about with this. Focus on the overall win of a partnership, not just an exchange of referrals.
And you gave another example a few minutes ago, when you said if you're including strategic partners with your monthly communications, if they come and say, I love these letters that you're sending to your clients every month or that you're sending me every month, I really need to start doing that. I think you mentioned, okay, here's copy, you put your own name on it and send it out. Does that fit in with what you're talking about with?
No, totally, 100% does. And same thing with what you mentioned with the monthly drip letter, right? So that if I'm sending out a letter talking about market, what's trending now, or hey, this happened in the market yesterday, you need to be aware of it. I'm going to let my client know, my CPA know, because all the other CPAs are just listening to the talking heads on TV. I want my partner to be empowered with what's actually happening so they can have great communications with their clients. And again, this constant exchange is what benefits that third thing that everybody's always focused on.
Right. It's really fascinating, Matt, looking at all these mistakes in sequence and everything that you've been talking about over the past hour. Really, the key to strategic partner networks, it seems to me, so much is having the right mindset. Treating these things as partnerships for the benefit of everyone involved. The client, the other professional, and of course yourself. Rather than specific little sneaky tactics or anything like that. It's coming into this with the right kind of inclusive mindset and attitude. And the more you do that with the more people, the more you're going to start building up these fruitful relationships. Do you think that's an accurate way of summing it up?
Excellent, excellent summation.
Cool. Now, we promised you 5 big strategic partner mistakes, but Matt wanted to give you a bonus one. So, Matt, why don't you talk about this really quick? Networking narrowness. What is this mistake?
Yeah, so it kind of fits into some of these others, but just I wanted to kind of highlight this fact that expand your horizons, right? Look at those 6 or 13, whatever number you want to look at, areas of your client's life that touch on finances. I mean, if we're helping them, but to your point, Matt, earlier in the call, if we're helping them try to travel more in retirement and we're working out the financial side, why not help them on the actual travel side by having a travel agent that takes great care of people and that I could tee them up to? Like, why not do that? So expand your horizons on who we're partnering with. It's not just CPAs and attorneys, it's all of these other professionals. And then the other piece that I kind of mentioned earlier is what I usually see is, oh yeah, Matt, I've developed my list. Great. How many people are on your list? I've got 9. What? Right? If 10% of them, just to kind of go back to that number, work out, you're not there. Right? I need a big list. And if you're in a small town, great, expand out a little bit, either in profession or in city and geographic area. But I need 6 to 10 potential partners, depending upon how many I can manage. 6 to 8 is usually what we see is good, because you got to think of all this communication that's happening. But 6 to 8 is usually a good number. Go expand your horizons, get a big list,
right,
and narrow it down to that.
And this really speaks to what you were talking about at the beginning of creativity, being creative in how you're thinking about strategic partnerships. And then also, I would argue, be client centric. When you're thinking of strategic partners and potential partners, who do I need to be talking to make things, to provide better service for my clients, to make my clients' lives better, to make it more likely they're going to reach their financial goals? The more you think in those terms, who do I need to talk to for Joe's benefit, for Mary's benefit, etc., the more likely you are to have success with building up a strategic partner network.
Definitely.
Excellent. All right, so we are just about out of time, and I want to give you what we promised. We're so grateful for all of you for spending this hour with us. We hope you got as much out of this as we did in preparing it. So to say thank you, we want to give you a goodie bag, and today's goodie bag has a special guidebook. And that, as we mentioned, is the 6 steps to generating strategic partner referrals. This is a document that both Matt and I have worked on, and it's especially, I think, Matt's baby. Something he's put a lot of time and care into, and it provides so much good advice, so much actionable information and insights on how you can start finding more potential partners, getting in front of them, finding out who is real and who is just a pit, and taking that relationship to the next level for the mutual benefit of yourself, them, and of course, your clients. So to get that strategic partner guidebook, all we ask is you fill out a quick survey. Let us know what you got from this call today, what you'd like to hear from us on in the future, what we can do better with. All you have to do is visit bgmtips.com/6. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a couple more minutes, so you can all write that down and visit that, and that'll take you right to the guidebook once you filled out the survey. And then finally, for those of you still with us, if you are not currently a Bill Good Marketing subscriber, if you'd like to learn more about what it is that we do, what we can help you with, or if you just want to learn more about, okay, I've got a gap somewhere in my own strategic partnerships where I'm not getting the kinds of referrals I'm expecting. I'm not developing the kinds of, engaged relationships that I want to, based off what Matt Hicken was saying today. Give us a call. Let's sit down. Let's talk with you and find out, where that gap is and how we can plug it. Here at Bill Good Marketing, our whole mission is we provide all the content, all the coaching, all the campaigns, all the processes that you need to double your production or work half as much. And that includes working with strategic partnerships and everything we talked about today, the content that you need to stay in front of strategic partnerships, the actual processes for what do you ask them when you sit down, what do you show them about yourselves, how do you keep them engaged and interactive, the campaigns you need to find out who your clients are currently working with that you might want to start working with. All of that is part of the Bill Good Marketing system. And if you'd like to learn more about how it can benefit you, we'd love to talk with you. So when you're filling out the survey, let us know if you'd like to have a growth potential analysis with us, and figure out what we can do to help you keep moving forward toward your goals. And we sure appreciate the chance to talk to you. Okay, Matt, anything else you want to add before we say goodbye today?
I think that's it. I think you've summed it up pretty good, but I would take advantage of that analysis about the growth analysis with our team here. If you haven't worked with us, that'll help you on all of these things, including strategic partnerships.
Great. Just reading Kim Fink's comments. Kim, we love
Kim,
you.
just tell him that I take priority anyway. His brother is the priority.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you. We can't wait to see you on our next webinar, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, hope you have a great rest of your day. Let us know how we can help. And as always, thank you very much.